What is going on, everyone? My name is Thomas Miner. I am an agent at Remax Precision. I'm a member of the Sphere Real Estate team. And this is Thomas Talks on Thursday. This is a live stream that I created a few months ago because I wanted to dive deeper into real estate topics that I think are important. I wanted to talk more about the community as well as it relates to real estate news. And I more importantly wanted to discuss things that are interesting to my friends, family, followers, and everything like that. So, what I do is typically every Wednesday or Thursday morning, I make a post giving you guys an idea of what I want to talk about and then asking you guys for any topics or anything that you think is interesting to talk about. And this episode, I'll be totally honest, I didn't have anything that I was super passionate about. So this episode, I left it really, really broad. Just anything you guys want to talk about, comment it below, and I will talk about it in more detail on the live stream. And thankfully, I have tons of great followers and everything, and some great questions were asked. So I'm going to dive deeper into those and talk about what you guys are think is interesting. And this is live, so you could join in and comment in on the discussion as well too, and kind of keep the video going, keep it more interesting. So let's dive into it. Landon wrote me a small novel. He said, not so much a question on this first part, but I feel like most people talk about first-time home buying process and not much about the first-time home selling process. There are quite a few similarities, and you will understand the process better when you do sell, but there are quite a few differences. For example, when Sam, which is his wife, and I sold our house with you, we actually had an offer accepted that was contingent on the purchaser selling their house that was in a different state and hadn't been on the market for quite a while. You navigated us to write up the contract where we could still accept new offers. That led us to the person that actually purchased our house. Not only did they offer more, they had less contingencies, except for the fact that it was an FHA loan, which required more from us as the seller. I think it is important to discuss that you helped us through the process, and we ended up selling our house. Let me make that a little bigger so I can read it better. There we go. For more or less contingency, it may be good to elaborate on that more. Also, there have been many have there been any offers that you ended up declining because the seller was asking too much, not so much a lowball offer? Okay, so first off, yeah, Landon kind of encouraged me here, and made my brain start to go. Um, our market or any market in general is made up. A lot of the purchases that you see on any given day are made up of first time home buyers. So a lot of people's marketing is educating first time home buyers, and encouraging first time home buyers to make that jump into home ownership, because a lot of real estate agents like me truly believe that owning a home is still a great decision that you can make for your life, and it opens up a lot of opportunities for you. But yeah, I think a great topic to cover at some point in time in more depth would be giving people advice for the first time selling their home and giving them an idea of what to expect and what that would look like. Landon mentioned here when he sold his place, the first offer he accepted was subject to sale offer, meaning that the buyer wanted to purchase his house, but they had to sell their current residence before they could afford to purchase his. So basically, the way the agreement was written was all the stuff that's normally in a purchase agreement, but it was all contingent on him getting an accepted offer on his place. And it depends on how it's negotiated. Like Landon mentioned in this one, it was negotiated in a way that his home still stayed active. The only, and this is most common with subject to sales. The only thing that it's listed as active, but we tell other buyers that are looking, hey, it's subject to sale. And what will typically happen is if another buyer comes along and also wants to purchase the house and they don't have a subject to sale agreement, what happens is we give the original purchaser, the one that was purchasing subject to sale, we give them a notice, and they have a certain amount of time that is outlined in the agreement to remove their subject to sale offer. So buyers that have subject to sale offers accepted, they get that notice saying, hey, another offer is coming in. You either need to remove your subject to sale offer or we're going to bump your offer. And typically, it depends on how hot the market is. Um, Typically, it's either 24 or 48 hours. And then buyers either have the option to figure out a way to purchase without selling their current home, or they have to get an accepted offer on their current home within that 24 to 48 hours. And as a seller, as long as it's negotiated that way, accepting the subject sale offer puts you in a pretty good position because one, any other buyer that's coming through knows that there's another offer on the board, so they know that their offer has to be pretty strong to encourage you to bump that subject to sale, which is exactly what happened with Landon and Sam. It put them in a really, really good position um, because this other buyer was encouraged by the fact that they had already accepted the subject to sale. So it puts you in a pretty good negotiation period. And worst case scenario, you accept offer B and the subject to sale doesn't perform, you still sold your house, or you accept offer B and then offer A does figure out a way to perform, you still sold your house. So it encourages other offers and it encourages those other offers to be good, basically. But I do have this written up as well. A subject to offer means a buyer wants to purchase a home, but the deal depends on them selling their current home first. Buyer makes an offer on her house, they must sell their current house. If the home doesn't sell within a certain amount of time, the deal may fall through. So a lot of subject to sale offers I write, it's really, really dependent on what kind of market that we're in. I think the longest I've done is I gave my purchasers 30 days to sell their current place, which is it's 30 days to get an accepted offer, and then closing is scheduled once you get an accepted offer. And then the shortest one I think I did was like a week. It was like a really, really hot market. We were confident that my buyer's place would sell very, very quickly. It did. And it all went really, really well. The second thing Landon talked about was has there been any offers that you ended up declining due to sellers asking for too much and not so much a lowball offer? So I kind of brainstormed in my head and I wanted to talk about terms that can make a home less appealing to buyers because it doesn't always come down to price. Sometimes deals fall apart for other terms. So one of the biggest things I've seen is there's some sellers that list their home on the market and they know the home's not in good shape, and they don't want to allow inspections. And I'm saying a lot of buyers will sell their home as is, meaning, hey, just so we're on the same page here, this is an as is sale, meaning I'm not going to do any repairs. I've seen sellers say, I don't even want you to do an inspection. So that can make a home really, really unappealing to a buyer because most buyers want to do an inspection, even if they know it's going to be an as is deal because you don't really know what you're getting into. I've walked through thousands of homes at this point in time. A lot of my buyers that are thinking about offering on properties as is have a pretty good idea what's wrong with the home, but it never hurts to have an extra set of eyes and kind of relieve that stress of trying to know as much as possible about what you're getting into as possible. And that can make a home unappealing. This is pretty common, but it does decrease your buyer pool as a seller is not accepting a FHA or VA. I've had offers that I've sent out that were FHA, and the seller has said, hey, we will only accept this if you figure out a way to go conventional. And the reason they say that, and Landon actually mentioned this in his video, is FHA offers the appraisal process is a little bit different. The appraisal is not only to determine value, but they are also determining that the home is in livable condition, basically. So it's not a strenuous inspection, but stuff does come up every now and then. Like if there's an obvious electric issue, if there is an issue with anything with the HVAC, if there's a glaring issue with the roof. And then the other one that comes up a lot is if the home is older than 1978, that means that it's possible that there's lead-based paint And if it's possible that there's lead-based paint, an FHA or a VA appraiser does not want to see any chipping or peeling paint. So it comes down to whether the buyer can remove and go conventional or FHA, or it depends. Also, not only can they remove it, because a lot of FHA buyers and VA buyers can remove it. Do they even like the house enough to remove that term and switch to conventional? Because a lot of times, if a buyer is looking to go FHA or go VA, it is because the benefits of those programs are making their monthly payment lower, or the benefits of the program are making the down payment much easier. And some buyers do have the option to go the other way, but it changes their monthly payment or it changes how much cash they have to bring to closing. And do they like the house enough to remove that there? Inflexible closing date. I just showed a house another week that the seller had it on the market, but they didn't want to close till November. That decreases your buyer pool a lot. A lot of people looking to go purchase a home want to close within 30 to 45 days. So um, even if they fall in love with your home, do they really, really want to wait until November to move into their next place? Do they even have the option with where they're living currently to extend that stay to November? Inflexible closing dates, believe it or not, can decrease your buyer pool. Um, this was a lot more common when the market was really, really hot, but waiving an appraisal contingency. So in your purchase agreement, you most typically will have an appraisal contingency, and all that says is, hey, if the appraiser comes in and determines that the value of the home is less than what I offered, we have an opportunity to renegotiate price at that point. So if you offer 300,000, an appraiser comes through and says this house is only worth 280. Once the appraiser says the house is worth 280, your lender is the one that hired that appraiser. The lender is only going to loan you, the buyer, the money based off of appraised value. So you, as the buyer, if it's a conventional loan, you as the buyer have the option to bring in the cash to make up that difference, or you ask the seller to come down in price. If it's a FHA or VA, because of the clauses that are in the FHA or VA loan, you do not have the option to bring in that extra cash. So if the seller is asking you to waive that appraisal contingency, that puts you in a really, really big risky position. Technically, you would still have the opportunity to back out if you waive the appraisal contingency, because in the hypothetical world, it appraises at 280 and you don't have the cash to make up that difference. You're not going to get approved for the financing, so you can back out because of the financing clause. But other sellers not only are asking you to waive the appraisal contingency, they're asking you to waive the financing contingency. So that really decreases your buyer pool as well. Let's see here. Non-refundable earnest money. I've never done this, but I've heard of it being done. Is sellers asking, earnest money is a good faith deposit that you put in within 3 days of an accepted offer. The earnest money goes into a trust account, and basically at closing, that money goes back to the buyer and goes either towards their closing cost or their down payment. But that money is there because if the buyer backs out for any reason that's not outlined in the contract, the seller gets to keep that money. But if you back out for something that is in the contract, you get to keep that money. If it's non-refundable, that means, hey, if you back out, even for something that's outlined in the contract, me, the seller, I'm going to keep it. So that's a contingency that not a lot of buyers are interested in. It does decrease your buyer pool. Selling as is, I already talked about that. But even if, so not allowing inspections is one thing, but wanting to sell it as is does decrease your buyer pool as well too, because there's just not a lot of buyers. Even if they get the chance to do an inspection, they want to have that option to ask a seller to make repairs. So it does decrease your buyer pool as well. This seller paid closing costs are becoming very, very common in this market. As a seller, as long as the total dollars make sense, it's a really, really good idea to offer that, because When you offer seller paid closing costs, that saves your buyer cash at closing, and that can be really, really appealing to a lot of buyers. So not offering that decreases your buyer pool as well. So those are some things that I've seen come up that discourage buyers from writing offers or accepting offers and making a deal that aren't just as simple as what price are we putting in on the home. I'm going to check really quick to make sure no comments have come in yet. Cool. Let's go to the next thing. Brian said, what does an HOA pay for exactly, and why are they so different in price monthly between locations around town? Some are 200, others are as high as 1,000. I just saw one that was just over 1,000, and that one was covering internet. They were covering taxes on the property, which was really, really unique. I've never seen that other than that property. And then they were covering the other HOA things. So this is some things I commonly see, and you have to, it gets tricky when you're looking at condos or townhomes that are part of HOAs. You have to really dive deep into what exactly amenities wise and services they are offering. But commonly you will see lawn care being provided. You will see snow removal being provided. You will see trash service being provided. You will see exterior maintenance being provided. You will see roof and siding repairs being provided. You will see them keeping upkeep going on the common areas. You will see amenities like a pool or outdoor amenities, and then you will see some sort of master insurance. But you have to look at it in detail, because I've seen some that are lower monthly HOAs because they're only covering exterior maintenance, but they're not covering exterior repairs. So that means if a storm comes through and damages the roof and the siding, they're expecting you, the homeowner, to have insurance to cover that repair. They're only covering like going out and repainting it and stuff like that. So you have to pay really, really close attention to what exactly they're covering. Pretty much all the time they're doing lawn care and snow removal, but you have to know exactly what amenities they're offering. You have to really, really dig deep in the HOA covenants, the guidelines, all of that good stuff, the regulations, and then look at their recent board meetings, look at their financials. And whenever you're offering on a property that's part of an HOA, we have what's called an HOA addendum that asks for all these documents. You receive the documents, you get 5 days to look at them. We go over them together, and you have an opportunity to back out at that point if you see anything that's discouraging in that HOA. HOAs, it's been kind of a big thing lately, because a lot of the HOA fees are rising quite a bit. So the most common reasons I see HOA fees getting risen is for a lot of different reasons. Deferred maintenance. The HOA just wasn't actively keeping up on projects that need to be done to maintain the value of the property. And then finally, the bill comes due and the project just straight up needs to be done. One that my mom used to live in, they had a big retaining wall that finally collapsed. They needed to do a repair project on it. Those retaining walls, if they need to be replaced, are very, very expensive. They didn't necessarily have the reserves to do that. They had the opportunity at that point in time to charge the HOA members either an assessment, or they had the opportunity to up the HOA due. That situation, they upped the assessment, but that's a reason that the monthly fee could have gone up. Underfunded reserves. This is going to be something that's going to be coming up more often because the lending guidelines have changed on this. They're looking for more reserves than they required before. So if they don't have enough reserves, they can either, once again, charge an assessment or up the HOA fee. That's one. Insurance costs, they have to maintain insurance, and insurance just keeps going up and up, especially in Iowa. So that's one reason. A major repair comes up. I was just talking to an HOA board member the other day, and he was talking about how lucky they have been because they've continuously kept good insurance, and there's been storms that have come through that they've been able to get roof and siding repairs done under their insurance. But he was worried about if it were ever to get into a situation where the roof or siding needed to be replaced and they couldn't get an insurance claim on it. Roofs and siding for big HOA developments cost a lot of money. So an assessment or increase in HOA fees. And then just lawn care and snow removal just keeps getting more and more expensive. And that could be a reason. And then delinquencies and legal costs. If the HOA were to get sued for any reason, that comes out of your reserves and could end up being a reason the HOA fees were increased, or if the HOA just isn't keeping up on bills. I'm going to be totally honest, because this is becoming a hot button topic, and maybe my followers can help me out with this. I would love to talk to someone that is an expert on these types of things and not only help me, but help my followers learn what to look at when you're assessing whether you want to purchase a property in HOA. Really diving deep into their covenants, their bylaws, their regulations, diving deep into their finances, diving deep into their most recent board meetings, what to look at to prepare yourself to ask yourself, is this an HOA that could potentially be increasing their fees? Because it's kind of sort of inevitable. You run into a lot of HOAs that were built new construction because it's brand new. There's not a lot of maintenance that needs to be done, but the older the properties get, the more stuff comes up and the more expensive things get. So just inevitably the HOA fees go up. So I would love to dive deeper into this, but this is just in general what happens with HOAs and why the monthly fees can be that drastic. Because new construction ones you look at, they can either be 150, 175. And like Brian said, they can go all the way up to 1,000 sometimes. What's the difference between an appraisal and an inspection? This is going to be an easy one, but I'm going to dive deeper into it as well. A real estate appraisal, pretty simple. A real estate appraisal is a professional opinion of a home's market value, usually used by a lender to confirm what the home is worth. Confirm the home is worth the purchase price. A lender is giving you a loan. There's two assumptions that they're making when they're giving you a loan. They're looking to verify that you, the buyer, are going to be able to pay them monthly, and then they want to verify that the asset that they're helping you purchase is worth what you're purchasing it for. So they have this appraiser come out and say yes or no, this property is worth what these people are paying. If it's not worth what these people are paying, depending on how the contract is written, you can renegotiate the purchase price. But no matter what, if it's not worth what the buyer is paying, you will only get a loan based on what the appraiser says the value is. If it ends up being appraised for more, nothing changes. If it ends up being appraised for quite a bit more, it's a win for you. That means you got it at a good price, but nothing changes. An inspection is a real estate inspection is done by a professional to evaluate the home's condition to help a buyer understand any issues before closing. This is done by a licensed home inspector. You are now required in the state of Iowa to be licensed by some national board. The home inspection is just a visual inspection. They're not tearing into walls or anything like that. And they help make buyers more comfortable with the purchase, and they help point out issues that the buyers want to negotiate to be fixed before closing. What is an inspection for? This is a big topic that I always talk to all my buyers about and try to make sure that they understand what this is for. An inspection is not to bring a home up to code. It is not to make the home like new. An inspection is there to point out health and safety issues, potential structural issues, and anything that could potentially cost more than $500 to fix. So we're looking for electrical issues that could potentially cause a fire. We're looking for water issues that are causing structural damage. We're looking at the foundation, we're looking at the roof, we're looking at the exterior to assess, is the home working as it should? Is there anything that we didn't see when we were walking through it at first that could potentially be an issue when it comes to that? Another thing I didn't mention, the sellers also do have an option when negotiating an offer or negotiating an inspection to say, hey, you can't do a sewer scope, you can't do a radon test, things like that. That's often discouraging to a buyer as well, too. But sewer scope, basically, they're putting a camera into the sewer, running it from the house to the street to make sure that the sewer is working as it should as well, too. If you're looking at, honestly, basically any house, I would recommend getting a sewer scope done to assess, because that is a pretty expensive repair. The big things I'm concerned about when looking at an inspection with my buyer are huge repairs that would set the buyer back quite a bit. In a sewer, basically the cheapest you're repairing a sewer for is $5,000. Roof is another big one. HVAC is another big one. And then any foundation issues is another big one. And then obviously there's health and structural stuff that comes up. But those are, you're talking about leaking pipes. You're talking about leaking gas lines. You're talking about GFCI that should be where it's at. That's an electric issue. Any issues with the panel, that's normally cheaper stuff to fix, but it is a health issue. So let's get it solved as soon as possible, or at least let the buyer know what they're getting into so they can get it fixed when they moved in as well too. So I wanted to talk about two, because this brought me on to this topic. I wanted to highlight, because a lot of people use these terms interchangeably, but they're not exactly the same thing. So understand what people are talking about when they're talking about certain numbers. So there's appraised value, there's the list price, there's market value, there's assessed value. Appraised value, we talked about that. That is the value that the appraiser assigns to your home. So that's a professional's opinion on what the market value is. The list price is what the owner has the home listed at. Market value is essentially what the home is worth. But that's kind of hard to establish. You can estimate market value. I can estimate market value. An appraiser can estimate market value. But truthfully, a home is only worth what someone is willing to offer. So in my opinion, you really only determine the market value once you get an accepted offer. Because once someone says, yeah, I'm willing to pay this, then that's what it's worth. That's the market value at that time. And then there's assessed value. Assessed value is what your local government is saying it's worth, and that's what you're taxed based on. Appraised value and assessed value often get confused. So you can go on your county website and you can see what your assessed value is. But the truth of the matter is your assessed value can be way different than your market value. So do not list your home based on the assessed value, because a lot of the times the assessed value is lower than your market value. So if one of those cash buyers comes in and wants to offer you assessed value, please talk to a real estate professional before accepting that offer, because they are probably going to get a good price if you accept that offer. So know what the difference between those is and talk to a professional. I think I got one more question. Difference between townhomes and condos. Let's pull this up. A condo is one unit inside of a larger building or complex. Condos are typically designed a lot like apartments, and a townhome is more of a single family unit that happens to have a sharing wall with another thing, is basically the difference between it. Townhomes, you typically will get a yard. Condos, you will not. Condos typically are in more high traffic areas, so the locations of them are typically more appealing. But yeah, that's your difference between a condo and a townhome. I had a lot of great questions today. I appreciate everyone for being involved with that. And I appreciate everyone for watching every week. I got quite a few viewers during this one, so that's really, really awesome to see. I'm going to keep doing this every Thursday. The more involved you guys are, the deeper these episodes will get. So if you're watching this later, don't be afraid to comment with a topic you want me to cover, and I will cover it in as much detail as I possibly can. This is truly for you guys. I want you guys to get an idea of what it's like to hear me talk about real estate, and I want you guys to be more informed when it comes time for you to make your next move. And especially shout out to Landon, because I think he made me decide on what one of my future episodes is. I think I'm going to do tips for first-time home sellers class and what to expect the first time selling your home. So I'm excited to do that, and have a great week, guys.